Hey, what's up? Adam Pullman here. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to this video. Today, we're going to dive into how much fat you should expect to lose per week. I wanted to put together a video on this because in my 10 years of coaching, I've realized there's a lot of, quite honestly, crappy information out there that isn't specific to the individual. And I want to help you gain a realistic understanding of how much you should expect to lose each week if you are doing everything the right way, if you are doing everything as you should be. And I will make sure I give you some valuable information on what you need to be doing given your specific starting point, your specific goals, etc. That way you can leave this video knowing exactly what to do and exactly what to expect when it comes to your fat loss. Now, before we dive in, obviously got to do the usual thing, subscribe, like, whatever, do all the things. Leave a comment if you found this helpful. And I'll mention this at the end of the video as well. I'm very active and most active actually on Instagram. So if you have any questions, comments about any of this stuff, you need some more clarity, feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'm always happy to help however I can. So let's go ahead and not waste any more time and dive right into it. Quick intro here before we dive in, just in case you're not familiar with who I am or what I do. My name is Adam Pullman. I am a certified strength and conditioning specialist. I have other certifications as well. They're listed there if you want to know what they are, but most people don't give a rip. And I've been training in person and online for over 10 years now. So I have both in-person training experience, which I believe has really helped me be a better online coach as well. And then I've been coaching and running my own business online for quite some time too. Okay. The stuff that I'm going to share with you today in this video, isn't just stuff that is nice on paper or only shown in research. Like, this stuff works in the real world as well. So with my client Troy, he and I just finished working together not too long ago. He recently graduated. He lost 24 pounds of fat in only 4 months. Okay. I will say he is a little bit of an exception to the rule. He was extremely consistent, rarely ever missed a day, and opted to be in a little bit more of a calorie deficit so he could have some more accelerated fat loss progress. But still, we use the same methods here in this video that you are going to learn. And same thing with my client Paige here, right? She and I worked together for quite some time. We're still actually working together, working on new goals. She lost over 20 pounds of body fat using these specific tweaks and strategies and guidelines that I'm going to walk you through here in a few seconds. Move my head here. Now, we are going to go into estimating a proper calorie deficit. We need to go over this because so many people give very generic guidelines about finding a calorie deficit that doesn't make sense for all people. You'll see online people say things like, oh, you should choose a 300 to 500 calorie deficit, a 200 calorie deficit if you want to be more conservative. But think about this. A 300 calorie deficit to one person is much bigger than a 300 calorie deficit to another. For example, I am going to estimate that I need roughly 3,000 calories a day to maintain my current weight with the lifestyle and activity that I have. If I go into a 300 calorie deficit or a 500 calorie deficit, that's not that much of my calorie budget that's being taken out. But if I am talking about one of my clients, like Alexa, for example, she's very petite and small. She has about 1,700 calories a day to be at maintenance. So a 500 calorie deficit for her is going to be nearly a third of her calorie intake needed to maintain her weight. That's a much bigger difference. So a 500 calorie deficit for me is a much smaller percentage than it is for my client Alexa because she's just smaller. She burns fewer calories at rest, and she's going to burn fewer calories doing the same amount of activity that I do. So we want to make sure that we find a calorie deficit that makes sense for you, and not just your body composition and what you need to do to achieve your goals, but also your tolerance. Because some people are more willing to give up things in order to see faster fat loss than other people are. So you kind of have to figure out where you land, and that's my goal, to help you figure that out today. All right, now, we need to first understand where your body composition is, okay? What your body fat percentage is. And if you don't know that, that's okay. Don't get hung up on how exact your estimation is going to be. It's probably going to be rough, but there are a few things you can do to get a better understanding. Okay. Obviously you can go get a body composition test done. There are many different methods out there, such as InBody, DEXA. I don't recommend you do anything other than a DEXA scan, unless you can find a hydrostatic test, which is where they dunk you underwater, but that's really hard to find, and it's a little bit of a pain in the butt as far as the amount of time it takes to do that. And very few people do it. Maybe some universities might, but even nowadays, I don't know if that's the case. So you can look up DEXA scan near me either DEXA or DXA scan near me, and you might be able to find something in your area that you can go do, get that body composition test done, and get a very good understanding of what your body composition is. With these DEXA scans, they will tell you that you don't need to be fasted. You definitely need to be fasted, okay? They are still sensitive to hydration, though they're not as sensitive to hydration compared to other methods of testing like in-body scan, which is bioelectrical impedance, or the home scale that you have at home, which uses the same type of formulas and technology, okay? If you're going to use a scale at home, you can use it to look at the change in your body composition over time and see what that is. But as far as a current snapshot, it's going to be very inaccurate. I've seen differences between home scales and in-bodies and then DEXA scans that are upwards of 12% different. Okay, that is going to be a massive difference in the amount of calories you estimate that you are going to need based on your body composition and your goals. Okay, the next thing you can do if you don't have a DEXA scan available to you in your area is you can just go to the description below and use my free calorie calculator. I'll give you a little bit of a visual to kind of help you guesstimate where you're at and then figure out your calorie needs from there using the tips and strategies that we're going to go through in this video, but still make sure you go through it because it's going to help you get a more accurate understanding when you do choose to go use that free calorie calculator. Okay. So that is just something to keep in mind. And when you are estimating, you always want to make sure that you're going to estimate a little bit higher than what it might be. So if you're like, it could be somewhere between 30 and 35% body fat, just opt for 35 because we're always going to want to give ourselves a little bit more grace. And we are always going to want to think that we are in better shape than we actually are. Okay. So just guess a little bit higher if you are unsure. So with that said, once you have an estimation of your body fat percentage, here's what you're going to want to do. You have these different categories here. Contest prep, which would be like bodybuilders, bikini competitors, people getting on stage and getting stage lean. For a man, that's going to be less than 8% and less than 14% for a woman. This is not something you are striving for to maintain year round. By far and away, it's unhealthy. And that's why people only do it for a short period of time. Having a certain amount of body fat is healthy for your body and your body does need it. So we don't want to hover around here. But anything in the athletic and average category is fine. But I'm always going to strive people to try to maintain year round in the athletic category because odds are that's going to be better for your health. But not only that, it's going to be better for your quality of life, your movement, and honestly, your resilience and how well you can take things on in life. I would die on the hill that being leaner, fitter, and stronger is going to set you up for a better quality of life than being a bit overweight and under-muscled. Okay, so no matter where you are, we just want to shoot for the next closest body fat percentage. Anyway, you have your average here, overweight here, and obese here. Okay. It's really important that you try to do the best you can to figure out where you're at because this is usually the wake-up call that people need to make the changes that they need to change. Because if you think about our population in the States, right, people are getting fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter. We are moving less and less, and we are consuming more and more and more calories, and that's why people are getting overweight. And what happens is, as people start to do that more and more over time, your perception begins to be skewed, right? A lot of people think the people on my 600-pound life are considered obese, when in reality, it's a lot of the people that you see every single day at the grocery store, maybe even in your family, at the gym, doing errands, whatever. And so what tends to happen is you might think, well, at least I'm not there. And then you don't have an objective reality check with where you're currently at with your body composition. Okay. So if you are a guy, ideally we want to get to year-round 8 to 15%. I could also say 8 to 20%. And if you are a girl, a woman, you want to make sure you get to 14% to maybe 25% or so. So we're somewhere between the low end of the athletic and the mid-range of the average. Okay. Now, having said that, you'll notice that the higher your body fat percentage is, the bigger your deficit can be, without risking muscle loss. So all this is factored in, trying to make sure we hold on to as much muscle as possible. Okay. So let's say you are a guy and you're watching this and you're at 25% body fat, which has you in this overweight category here. In theory, you can do a 30 to 50% deficit, which is 30 to 50% fewer calories than you need to maintain your weight, and lose a significant amount of body fat without risking muscle loss, assuming that you are getting enough protein in and you are strength training properly and on a regular basis. Now, a lot of people see this and they're like, oh my gosh, 30 to 50%. Listen, you can make 30 to 50% a lot more enjoyable by pursuing foods that are high in volume, so they take up a lot of space in your stomach, and that are low in calorie. And remember, you can make a 30 to 50% deficit higher in calories by increasing your activity. So if you are sedentary, you go and use my calculator and you're sedentary, right? And you opt for a 30% deficit and you see that calorie amount and you're like, what is that? How am I supposed to do that? Well, you're going to either have to accept that and do it, or increase the amount of steps that you get a day and become more active so you can have a bigger calorie budget and still be in a 30% deficit. Now, the other thing that we have to consider, aside from what's best in terms of losing the fat you need to lose without losing muscle, is what you're willing to do. Because on paper, it doesn't matter if a 30% deficit makes the most sense for you if you're not willing to do it. Okay, I have some clients who are willing to make bigger sacrifices and say no to a lot more things so they can get to their goals sooner. I have other clients that want to have the happy hours. They want to have the drinks. They want to have the treats 3 nights a week and whatever. And they are willing to have slower fat loss as a result of that. So it kind of depends on what you want. I will give you my opinion based on how I would be coaching you if you didn't really have a preference. I am always going to err on the side of a larger deficit on the larger end of what you are willing to tolerate, because you're going to get to your goals sooner. You're going to have wins quicker, which is going to solidify buy-in and trust in the process. And it's going to be more enjoyable because you're going to feel better faster as you're going through this process. Anybody that's 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight knows what it's like to lose that first 10. It feels so freaking good. So why take 6 months to do that when you can do that in the first 6 weeks, right? So that's my belief there. But again, you need to do whatever it is that you feel best aligns with your tolerance. If you're not willing to make those sacrifices, that's okay. But what I'm trying to avoid here is you saying, oh, okay, I'm going to expect the weight loss that comes with a 40% deficit, but I'm only going to actually be willing to do a 20% deficit. That's going to lead to a lot of frustration, and you're going to quit pretty soon because the work that you feel you're putting in isn't matching the results that you feel you should be getting. So now, once you've picked the size of the deficit that you want to be in, remember, the bigger the deficit, the more the fat loss. This is what you can expect to see in terms of weight lost each week. All right, when you are a very small deficit, max of 0.5% of your body weight, and then from there we get to 0.7%, 1%, 1.5%, and then not applicable because these people can just lose a stupid amount of body fat, okay? By the way, PSMF is protein-sparing modified fast, which usually should be done under the supervision of a doctor, and usually what they're gonna do there, because it's such an extreme concern, this with the amount of body fat that you have, is put you on some sort of diet where you're really consuming protein, fruits, veggies, and that's pretty much it, to try to reduce the amount of calories as much as possible, keep the protein as high as possible with a small amount of calories, and really get rid of this body fat because it's seriously negative impacting not only health, but quality of life, okay? And people will see an insane amount of fat loss every single week doing something like that. So again, we don't want to say, oh, you should expect to lose, half a pound to 1 pound a week for every person. That doesn't make any sense. We want to make sure it is based on a percentage that is relative to the deficit that you have. Because so many people will be like, Adam, I watched this video where it said I was supposed to lose, 2 pounds a week, and I'm only losing 1/4 pound a week at most. I'm like, okay, well, what does your intake look like, and how many calories do you think you're burning a day? And it's like they're in a 7% deficit. They're in a really tiny deficit. So of course you're not going to see those kinds of results. So use this chart, go into the description, use my free calorie calculator, and that should be a big help. But here's the thing, how do we know this is working, right? What are the things that we keep track of to make sure that we are moving in the right direction? So we want to see a trend in your weekly average weights. So what you're going to do is weigh yourself first thing in the morning every single day. Yes, every single day. You don't need to be afraid of the scale. The scale isn't something to put in your closet and hide from. You're a big adult who can handle it, okay? And research shows the more often you weigh yourself, the more success you're going to have with not just weight loss, but weight management once you lose the weight as well. Okay, so you're gonna weigh yourself first thing in the morning, first thing in the morning after using the restroom. If it times up, obviously don't sit around and wait for it and be like, texting your boss, sorry. Haven't gone number 2 yet. Can't weigh myself until I do. Like, don't do that. But first thing in the morning, after using the restroom, if it time's up, and then before eating and drinking. And you're going to record those weights on your notes, in your phone, notepad, on the mirror with a dry erase marker, whatever. And then once you get to Sunday or after 7 days, you're going to take the average of those weigh-ins, and that is your weekly average weight. Over time, we should see a trend going in a downward direction. You might still see fluctuations from week to week. You're definitely going to see them day to day, but you might still see them from week to week, like this chart kind of shows. But over time, we still have a downward trend. Now, as long as you have a downward trend, your strength is slightly improving over time, slowly and slightly improving over time in the gym, and you can see changes in the mirror, okay, odds are you are only losing body fat and not muscle. If for some reason your strength significantly declines, you are getting weaker, something is off, something is not right, okay? So you need to make some adjustments. But if you are improving your performance in the gym with your strength, your average weight is going down, and obviously you're feeling those changes that you see in your clothes and seeing visible changes in the mirror, it is a very high likelihood that you are losing body fat and not muscle. So hopefully this helps. Before you go, like I said, I am very active on Instagram. So if you have more questions on this, or if you're feeling stuck and you've been trying to lose body fat, build muscle for a really long time, and you're just not sure what to do next, shoot me a DM. I'm always happy to help however I can, and I answer every single message myself. I read every single message as well. So hopefully this helps. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you guys soon.